evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Valentine special Vobes show. Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, and it's the 14th of February 2020, and it's the night of love. It's the night of love, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can see, I'm getting myself all spruced up, ready to go out on the pull, because, you know, a singleton like myself has to go out and try and find the love of his life for one night only, and then it's back to work, and none of that nonsense ever again. So, of course, I've not only have I put my favourite jacket on, I got all the squirty stuff. I got the aftershave to go on like that. I got the roll on, roll off deodorant, which you probably have to take your shirt off to stick that on. But I got all of that nonsense, and of course, best to make sure you have a shave so that the young fillies out there think, oh, what a nice, clean-shaven man. He must be magnificent. Let's find out who is out there in the live Vovosphere to see who's actually out there. We've got Audrey Forbes. Good evening to you. Lovely to see you. Linda Kane, the lovely Linda Kane. Mandy of Merrimack. Good evening to you. It's nice to see you. Les Jarvis. It's good to see you. Mickey Stevens. Hello. Nice to see you. Thank you for popping by. Rami Boo. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, she says. That's lovely. Lisa out there. Victoria Allam. Hello. Buona Serata. What ho, says Andrew Norris. What ho, old chap. How are you? How's it all going? Is it snowing in Wyoming, Jeff? Oh yes, Jeff, the lovely Jeff Kellison is out there. Hello, Jeff. He is driving, but he says the weather is grim where he is. Steve Pilfold says, time to stop reading about rolling contract fatigue and rail grinding. Yes, time to stop all that nonsense. I'm sure that must do your head in. Vicky says, were the postmen on strike today? What, no cards? What, no cards? Whoa. I have a great big post bag down here, 100,000 cards. Mr. Great Plum is there. Hello to you, Matthew. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for coming in. Justin, briefly, that's all right. I mean, I'm sure he's inundated with the requests since he's been on the Bald Explorer show. They're all swanning to his door. Quite understandably. Andrew, I don't know who Andrew is. Who is he? Andy Frierson says, hello, everybody. Hello, Andy. Nice to see you. Andy Stacey's also there. Good evening to you. Mandy of Merrick says, you're alone. So sad. I know, it's a sad evening. I did think that, you know, I could have gone to some modelling agency and got some model to sit here next to me and, you know, pretend to sort of be going, oh, Mr. Vobes, my heart doth flutter. But unfortunately, the modelling agency was very busy this evening. Apparently, a lot of people need them out there sitting next to some bald, fat, ugly bloke going, oh, Mr. So-and-so, my heart doth flutter. That is the script, actually, that they have to read out, which is a bit of a shame. Marriott Genealogy, nice to see you. It's very good of you to pop in. And Wendy Laurie says, hi, Richard, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you very much. That's very kind. You've splashed on your Brute. Yes, I've splashed it all over. I had a whole bath of Brute, actually. I went down to Cornwall where they do all that surfing. Do you remember the adverts where they used to do all the surfing? And I caught some of the brutish weather and the brutish water, and I put it back into my bath, which was very nice. Audrey Forbes says, blimey, I can smell him from here. I'm not surprised. Tonight's show is sponsored by Smelly Vision. So you should get a little bit of that. If anybody needs a little bit more, you can have some. Try not to advertise the product. So there we go. Mike Dixon, lovely Mike Dixon is out there. Hello, lovely Mike Dixon. It's very good of you to pop in. Lovely Julia, she says, oh no, I'm late. Don't panic. The show has not really started. I'm just doing the roll call, which is good. Linda Kane says, lots of people will be out celebrating, I expect. Yes, there'll be barely any people here. I imagine they're all incredibly busy, sitting in some restaurant, having undercooked food for overpriced costs. Overcooked food, and you know what I mean. Sitting there with the waiters and the waitresses actually wishing that they were somewhere else with their loved ones, and if they haven't got loved ones, they're looking at the people sitting there in the restaurant who do have loved ones with contempt. And not only that, the chefs are probably spitting on their food. So actually, you're better off, are you not, sitting at home, turning off the biased BBC and watching the Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi. before he goes out to some, secret disco that I have had an invitation to. Loads, as you can imagine, loads of invitations come in to the old Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi. People banging on my door. They're just desperate, touch. They just love to touch that little bit of celebrity that I have. They say to me, oh, Mr. Vobes, weren't you in Snug and Cozy? Weren't you in that children's television thing in the 90s? I remember that when I was 15. And I think, I don't think that's it. Well, because they wouldn't be 15 now. Actually, they'd be of a reasonable age, actually. But if they were 40 then, that would make them much older than me. Not that that's a bad thing, of course. Digging holes is something that I do very good. So that was Linda Kane. Ernie Samet is out there. Hello, Ernie. Tally-ho, old chap. Hope you are well. Looking forward to meeting you and getting into a Spitfire with you at some time in the latter part of the year. That sounds absolutely fantastic. He says he's watching from Dorset, Alweston in Sherborne, Dorset. There's a very nice public school apparently down in Sherborne in Dorset. It's a very nice part of the year. It's a very nice part of the year down there in Dorset, apparently, according to me. Jada Jones, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Nice of you to come in. Happy Valentine's, everyone, says the lovely Julia. Vicky Allam says, Valentine's Day, who decided on this day? Yeah, I think, was it Saint Valentine himself thought, I decree a time of commercial success when everybody can send overpriced sentiments that somebody else has written for them on their behalf. I think that's how that goes. So that's that. I can smell it from here, says Vicky. Yes, I'm not surprised. I think this will have to be the biggest audience yet tonight. What are you suggesting? Because nobody's gone out and done anything. And they're too embarrassed. They're too embarrassed to know. J.D. Jones says, wow, that's deep. It's a deep show tonight. Very, very deep. We're swimming right down. You know when you get into the swimming baths, do they still call them the swimming baths? Most people call it swimming pools, don't they? But my dad always used to call them the swimming baths. I suppose that's an age thing. Who says swimming baths? I'd be interested in that. Anyway, or baths. Bath, depending on which part of the country you come from. Of course, bath. You may be the swimming bath. Have you gone down the swimming bath, dear? But what I was trying to get to is when you go down the swimming baths, you sort of go, you swim at the shallow end and you get down into the deep end from which you may never return. Who knows? Think St. Valentine popped his clogs on this day, says Linda Kane. Yes, you see, he was so busy being all loved up that his heart gave up, I'm afraid. It was all that energy that was required from his lady fair, no doubt, if that was her name. Vicky says Sherborne is a lovely place, and indeed it is. I have actually been to and through, I think, Sherborne once or twice, but I don't know much more than that it is a lovely place, and it's in Dorset, so there we go. This is the love show, ladies and gentlemen, the Valentine's love show. I can prove that because we have this... lovely little intro thing, which I won't overplay because it will be over egging the pudding. But for those of you who tuned in and you'd missed it, I just wanted you to be aware that this is the Valentine special show. We don't do many specials here on the Vobes show. We don't normally have much content, as you know, so we're doing our best. Now, I do have some fascinating books. Of course, I've been preparing for this show for weeks and weeks and weeks, as you know. So one of the books that I've spent a lot of time reading is this one here, True Love by Robert Fulcrum. I don't know how you pronounce that. Full GH. What sound is a GH? Fulcrum. Anyway, I don't know what that sound is. There's some lovely stories in here, some of them very short. I was interested in the short stories, so I thought I'd read a couple of those to you in tonight's show. But of course, the other book which found its way onto my shelf many years ago, many years ago, and of course a man of my outstanding qualities barely needs to have a look at it, is this wonderful book here, How to Pick Up Beautiful Women, The Secrets Every Man Should Know. And I might, just for I might, for a laugh, have a look and see what these secrets are that every man should know. And of course, when I'm out and about, sort of on the prowl as a red-blooded man looking for his mate, I do have, of course, a nice box of applets and cotlets, or cotlets, whatever the hell these are. Applets and cotlets, which actually the lovely Jeff had sent many moons ago, and I haven't got round to doing much with these. I think they're still in date, but I'm sure that they would woo the most hardened heart to my naughty intentions. So I have those, so we may sample some of that. And of course, I've got a nice glass of, actually, this is PLJ, which is a lemon. Is it lime? It's lime something. I don't know what PLJ. Lemon juice. No, it's a sort of sparkling lemon, isn't it? I think it's lemon. I don't know what it is. But it's very sharp. Just add water. It's not alcoholic in any shape or form. So that's that. So Rami Boo says, tonight it's just all us singles here tonight. We're all sort of all miserable because everybody else is out on the town in the heavily prescribed, overbooked restaurants, and we're here sort of, feeling very grim and down on ourselves that we're all single. Either that, or we're celebrating the fact that actually we haven't had to buy any of this overpriced nonsense, that it doesn't really matter anyway, because to be honest with you, you can be in love with your partner and show them that love every single day. I'm sure every day that you go to the washing up bowl and you wash up your dishes and you say, no, it's all right, darling, you cook the dinner, I'll wash up. I'm sure that every man, every red-blooded man out there will be the first to get up and say, darling, you've cooked me such a lovely, lovely meal. Don't you worry, I shall wash up and put them away. It's the least I can do. I'm sure that every man does that. And if they don't, they bloody well should. Vicky says Sherborne is a lovely place. Yes. Jada Jane says, have you got a date? You look dapper in your attire. Thank you, Jada. Yes, of course. Of course, I have many dates. Many dates. They're all up here on the calendar, unfortunately. Yes, they're just numbers, my dates at the moment. I was hoping to get some figs, but I couldn't figure out how to get them into the studio without cracking a bad joke. Alas, no dates for me. Mickey Stevens says, it's Bath, not RBC. It's RBC. RBC. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for that translation, for which I am ever grateful. No idea what it means, but it's very nice. Happily single, says Linda Kane. Is that a question to me? Am I happily single? I don't have time. I don't have time for any of that love malarkey, ladies and gentlemen. I have to. I love my audience. That's what it is. I love you guys. You are the loves of my life, and I'm out there pounding the streets, clambering over the South Downs, winding my way on canal barges. No chance of any of that. The lovely Julia says Barth. Oh, Barth, is it? Is it Barth? Down there in Somerset, see? We go in the what did I call him? The swimming baths. Bath? The Barth. So you're not quite sure what you talking about there, lovely Julia. Stephen Blakey says, oh my God, LOL. Yes, sorry about that. Oh my God, OL. Vicky says, how about some love sonnets? Well, yes, that's true. Now, what I want from you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know about your very first love. Where were you when you found yourself with that overwhelming feeling that you didn't quite understand? And how old were you? You may have gone out, with a few members of the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on your particular persuasion. And you may have done all that and not really thought that was the thing. But where was who? We don't need to know who it was, but just where and what age and when and what happened when that sudden strange emotion that you can't sort of put a finger on and you can't just will up from anywhere just overwhelms you and makes you go, oh, I love you. I just love you. Just makes you turn into jelly. I want to know about your first love stories, ladies and gentlemen. So tell us a little bit about that. I'll read them out. We can share them, all of us, together here on the Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi show, which will be good. Vicky says her laptop has frozen. I'm sorry it's frozen. That is a shame. Must have got them when he was driving through Washington State, says Lisa. Not quite sure what that's about. Pure lemon juice. Oh, is that what it is? Pure lemon juice, PLJ. There we go. Thank you very much, Linda. Linda knows everything, by the way. One of these days, we're going to drag Linda Kane into the studio, kicking and screaming, and she will be our encyclopedia. And it'll be a bit like The Chase. I don't know if you've ever seen the programme on, I don't think it's on ITV, The Chase. I mean, I haven't seen it for years, but it was quite funny. And they would have these people who are general knowledge marvels of general knowledge, and they would come on, and you would, as a member of the audience, pit your wits against them. Well, I'm sure it would be Linda Kane and her speedy fingers over Google that would win out in the end. So that's really good. Alan says, what the heck are those? Oh, what these applets and collets? Is that what you're talking about? These, well, we're going to be opening those up and having a taste. They sound really good. Rami Boo says, that's a true man. Yes, the true man who comes to the washing up bowl and washes all the dishes. That's what I'm in. Robert Croser says, that's some jacket, Richard. Yes, thank you very much. I wear this on very rare occasions when I'm feeling very daring. Very, very daring. So one has to do that. Andy Friesen says, I've already been out with my wife, but had to rush back for the show. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the situation there in a beautiful restaurant with the soft music playing? There's a Richard Clayderman lookalike at the piano playing his little heart out on the ivories, and there's the smug waiter coming over, and there's many couples, roses, and a very slender crystal glass vase, and you can imagine the lighting is just perfect, and they're sitting there looking deep into each other's eyes, and there they are just having some beautiful oysters or whatever. Not that I like oysters, but they're sort of supposed to be an aphrodisiac. And Mrs. Friesen is getting very excited and all hot under the collar for the promises for the evening and where it must go. And then all of a sudden, Andy glances and sees the clock. That's, you don't normally get the clock in the restaurant, but through to the kitchen, the door is open. You can just glance the clock glances the clock, not the cock, because they could have been cooking, with chicken and cockerels and things, he says, getting out of that one very swiftly. And he glances at the clock and sees that it is 10 to 8 and thinks, oh, crikey. And he comes back to his wife and says, darling, I'm sorry, we've got to go. It's the Vobes show on. We must go. And Mrs. Friesen sitting there, what? What are you talking about? You're not going to go and sit and watch that man on Valentine's Day? Well, we've got a date. We're sitting here. We're having a lovely time. You were about to say something really nice about a nice holiday for two that we're going to go on some hovercraft somewhere. Very exciting. That's not sat in a museum. That we're going to go somewhere exciting. And he goes, yeah, never mind. Well, yeah, we're going to the Isle of Wight by hover speed. And but I've got to get back because the Vobes show's on. I can't let him keep going to that. This is Mr. Grimsdale. The Vobes show's on. Yes, that can happen, ladies and gentlemen. It does happen to a lot of people, unfortunately, and they rush back. It's a bit like in the old days when Dick Barton, Special Agent, used to be on at 6:15. That used to be something on that I think was in the 50s. Anyway, that's what he says. He's already been out. Well done, Andy, and thank you for making the show. Poor old Mrs. Friesen's probably sitting there now paying the bill. She's left her to pay the bill in the restaurant, which is a shame. Andrew Norris says, I passed a flower shop today and there was a queue of men buying the predictable roses, probably the only day of the year you can see that. What's worse? At least it was a flower shop. What's worse is when they pick them up from the forecourt of a petrol station and just think, that'll do for the missus. They are, love. I got that. Or from a supermarket where the wife has already been into the supermarket and seen all the naff old special offer, £5 for a mouldy bunch of flowers, seen all those and seen all the promotional chocolates in the foyer, as you go through the door. And then that's all she gets. They are, darling. Look, I lashed out for you, darling. Yeah, you really love me, don't you? You're better off not doing anything. Evening, lovers, says Ali Nicole. Good evening, Ali. Hope you're very well. I hope you've got your referee shorts on, showing off your magnificent legs. I'm sure you have. On Valentine's Day, I think that's the very least that you should be doing. Mike Dixon says, on Valentine's Day a few years ago, I gave my wife Helen a grave. Oh yes, a grave. It's true. He gave her wife a grave in the Clayton Natural Burial Ground near the Jack and Jill windmills. We will be together, as it's a double plot. So in other words, he's saying, look, darling, when you've snuffed it, I've already got the burial spot in mind. Yeah, how did that go down with Helen, Mike? Did that go down very well for your love? And I mean, I'm sure it was very... very nice, but it must be a very unusual thing to do on Valentine's Day. Julia says, that's so romantic, Mike. That's so very romantic. Mandy of Merrimack has taken her message off because she's probably just gone, what? Oh my God. We're in Sussex on the other side. Mr. Steve Pilfold says, I completely couched to 5k today. What do you mean? Completely couched to 5. Successful, done all 27 runs since November. I completely couch. I'm just trying to work this out, ladies and gentlemen. Completed couch to 5k. Is that a run? Is it a run you've done? I've successfully done all 27 runs since November, spreading them out due to work and weather. Done 26 without issue. Got 800 metres into the last over and twisted my ankle on shingle. Couch. Is couch a place or from your couch? Is that what you mean? From your couch to 5k? It's obviously some sort of run that you do. I'd like to have seen all the puffing and panting. You should do that on video. That would be interesting to see for a short while. Ali Nicole says 21 RAF Lossy Mouse, is it? Lossy Mouse? With a colleague for whom I became very close to. The feeling was mutual, but she was posted down south and the distance didn't work. Oh, that's so sad. That is so sad. And yet I'm sure you ran there with your, with your calves on display all the time. And that wasn't enough? You say, darling, I'm refereeing at Wrexham next week. Surely, you'll come and stay and watch. I'll blow my whistle several times and throw up a yellow card. And that was not enough, Well, probably, I'm afraid, if she's not there to take those yellow cards... What can I say? Rami Boo says, Apollets and Colettes are made near Leavenworth, WA, a cute little Bavarian town in the Cascade Mountains. The Cascade Mountains, they sound very nice. Do they sort of just cascade forever and ever? That would be good. Nice one, says Julia. Mandy of Merrimack says, I first fell in love at 15. That's a good age. Married him at 18, divorced him at 28. But this is the funny thing, people do get divorced and people's relationships do come to an end, of course. I mean, I'm a divorcee myself. And the thing is, you've got to remember at the end, even though it may be acrimonious and you may be at each other's throats and you may want to strangle each other, there was a time in that relationship, surely, because you wouldn't have got married, that there was a time when all you saw was the little hearts bobbling out of their soul. That's all you could imagine, was just being together. And you've got to, I always think you can't say ill of somebody you've been married to. Perhaps the end has been a bit awful, but the early parts, they're happy memories. Even though I'm divorced, I still have happy memories with the lady, Dawn, the mother of my children. I still have happy memories that we had together. We used to sort of say that we wanted to be the same wizened walnuts on the same branch when we were older, because we thought that we would stay together forever. But, things change and life moves on. Where in Sussex says, thanks, Julia. I hobbled through the remaining 25 minutes long Bexhill seafront. Oh, bless his little socks. Mandy says, no, you didn't get out of that one. Oh, I did try to get out of that one. I did try to get out of it. But, when you see the clock through the thing, you can imagine all sorts of things going on in there. It may have been just somebody with a rolling pin, and I saw the rolling pin for the wrong thing. Fiona Cooper says, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Richard. Thank you very much. Are you doing anything special, Fiona, with the lovely Dean on Valentine's Day this evening? I'm sure you're having a hoot. Jeff Kellerson says, I was 15 That's nice. First day of school, we were both early to school and waiting to open the doors. And there she stood, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You can't leave him there, Mr. Derek. What happened? What happened? At 15, you saw the most beautiful woman. What happened? Did you open the door for her? Did you let her in? Did you hold her in your arms, embrace her? Did you whisk her away into your great big lorry that you happen to have even at that early age? I want to know. We want to know. Vicky says, my first love was an American in US when I was 21. He swept me off my feet. Ah, that's nice. Did you land with a bump, though? Sadly, he was a two-timer, so came home to him in the UK and fell in love with another two-timer. Oh, my goodness. Now, this is an interesting thing. What is it about women and bad men? Why is it that women seem to fall for bad men, and yet the safe ones are always the ones who are on their own, the ones that are not going to two-time them, that will be devoted to them and will go to the washing up bowl and do the washing up and won't sit, lazily watching the telly or on a computer or, out in the pub with the lads or any of that sort of stuff, when the wife has been slaving away at home making or even been out to work herself, all of that. Why are they attracted to the wrong kind of men just because they've got strange tattoos and they don't shave and they talk rough? What is it that women find attractive about that? And they only last a day, said Vic. Oh, what only last a day? What first love? And Ali Nicole says, my referee legs are wrapped up this morning and the wife is happy. That the wife is happy because the legs are wrapped up. Oh, that says something. Andy Freeson says, you should definitely be on the telly, Richard. Yeah, thanks. Is that because you can turn me off? That's what most people say. Audrey Forbes Hamilton says, here we go. Audrey Forbes Hamilton. We can imagine the lovely Audrey Forbes with a lovely name like that, Audrey. We can imagine this. I was 19. We were just friends when he walked into my pub. My stomach flipped and I realised that I liked him even though he was not usually my type. And that was 44 years ago. Did he have dreadlocks and, hate tattooed on his head and chains round his arms and a flick knife in his hand? Was he that, not quite? I can't imagine that being quite your type. That was 44 years ago when you were 19. So what happened? Did you marry him? Did you just ogle at him and go, nice bum? Where in Sussex says it was a running programme that gets getting people from being fatties on the couch to running for 3 miles. Oh, right. Oh, that's excellent. That's superb. I can tell you that the lovely Julia and I didn't need to go running today because we went out to go and make a video. We went up over Lewis. We climbed up a very steep hill. And poor old Julia, she insisted on carrying Joseph, who is about 20 stone now, I think, or at least certainly felt probably like that. I was obviously carrying a microphone and a small camera, so I couldn't possibly carry the extra weight of a baby up a hill. I might break into some sweat. We wouldn't want any of that. But, we did a bit of exercise, which was useful. Andrew Norris says, 17 at school, the memory of my first love haunts me 40 years later. You never forget the first love. Isn't that strange? It's very true, actually. You don't. And you do wonder. Are you one of those people that wonder at that person that made your heart sing for the very first time? Where they are now and what they're doing, and are they happy, and would they have been happier with you, and would you have been happier with them? But maybe it wouldn't have worked out because you wouldn't have had any experience of different people, and perhaps you need to go through a few relationships to suddenly realize that actually it's not all about you, that actually it is a lot about the other person, and that you can give more and be more generous if you've gone through other relationships. Sometimes you see some of these people and they're in their 60s and 70s and they find the person, they said, I've never been happier in all the relations I have. Now I understand what it means to be in love. So that's quite an interesting thing. Mike Dixon says, my colleague suggested I buy Helen a tree to plant on our natural burial plot for her next birthday present. I think, you may be You may be stirring the pot a bit there. She may want some other things. Thankfully, she loves the wood where we live. Well, maybe she just wants to be buried in the wood, you know. That might be an option. Dave Ford says, I always thought girls were silly. Ah, bless his cotton woolen socks. You see, he's into dogs. He's into whippets. Not in that way, you understand, but he does like them. Oh, until the 6th of April, 1974. That memory, that date, is on his mind very, very much. When Olivia Newton-John came on the TV screen at the Eurovision Song Contest from Brighton. Suddenly got interested in girls after that. Hello, darling. Fancy a nice Apollette and Colette thing? Know what I mean? Know what I mean, love? This is the Vobes Valentine show, if you've just tuned in. We have 43 people watching this nonsense. But it isn't, because we're talking about probably the most important thing that you could possibly talk about, and that is where you, for one moment, no longer about you, it's all about the other person. Ali Nicole says, I hope it wasn't just my thunder thighs in tight referee shorts that she liked. I'm sure there was something else in those tight shorts that she had her eye on. Maybe. Have a word with the chef in the earlier scenario. He'll be able to put you straight on that one. Lisa says, Cascades are the second tallest mountain range in the US and have lots of snow-capped peaks and even volcanoes. That's the perfect place, is it not, to take your loved one after 44 years, just when you're coming to the end of that relationship, to a volcano. Make sure you've got the life insurance before they inadvertently slip into it. That's always a good piece of advice that I could give you. Rami Boo says, you and me both, Andrew. That's it. Ernie Samet says, here we go. We're getting all the dirt now, ladies and gentlemen. Bear in mind, I'm writing this all down, and so if anybody crosses me, you know, I will have this information to come back on. Ernie says, I met my first girlfriend in May 1984. I think I'll just picture that. May, the blossom on the trees. How lovely is that? You know, the hawthorn with all the lovely white blossom, and you've had the daffodils and the bluebells are coming out. There's perfect time to meet the love of your life. And he says he met her at David Sylvian's photographic gallery in London. Oh, hello, photographic gallery. What was she like? You know, all dressed with just skimpy. Let's think. We're still good friends and send birthday and Christmas cards every year. Ah, bless. And I bet you've got some of those rather erotic ones that you were photographing back then. But were you wearing your RAF outfit? Is that what she fell for when she first saw you in the photographic gallery? I wonder. Andrew Norris says, because women don't like nice men. Why don't they like? That's what yes, okay, so that goes to my earlier question, why they got bad men. Then they moan about the bad men because they've cheated on them, or they've walked out on them, they've borrowed all their food, or they've, you know, left them pregnant and run off. And so they like the bad men for a very short period of time, and then they, you know, say nasty things about them, and then they'll meet another bad man and go, oh, but, you know, he's got this tattoo, or he's got a gold tooth, or he drives a certain car, or his mate Bob is good in bed. Who knows? Mandy of Merrimack says, good guys seem dull, the bad ones are clever and trick us, but we catch on eventually. Yes, but when you're 82, that eventually has sort of robbed you of all the excitement that you could have done by training up the dull guy. I mean, good guys don't have to be dull, surely. They don't have to be dull. Jeff says, married at 18, divorced at 31, but I love her more than life. I loved her more than life itself. Yes. So, I wonder what went wrong. But that is the thing, you know. It's a funny old game, isn't it? That love thing. Glenn Johnson says, "Hello, what have I missed, computer people?" Well, we're talking about love, and I'm sure a man who has a Mohican on his head and wears a leather jacket is probably and has a sort of hard nut look. Is just the sort of bloke who has women swooning left, right and centre, falling at his feet. I'm sure they fall at your feet, Glenn, especially as you're in the rock band playing all that music with you on the double bass or whatever it is that you play. I'm sure that you must have some stories about the rock chicks that follow you about and throw parts of their anatomy, the things they wear. They're bloomers. They're lovely bloomers. I'm sure they do all that. Don't you believe it, Andrew? Says Linda Kane. Audrey says, reader, I married him. Ah, thank you very much for putting us out of the misery. There we were wondering. She saw this bloke and she married him, and she's been happy ever since. All these other men have come and gone, but she's not even given them the evil eye. Unfortunately, I can't give women a second look, which is very sad. I'm in a difficult position because I've only got one eye. I can only give them one look. I can't give them a second look because there's nothing in the eye that works. It's a bad joke, but I'm keeping with it. Andy Nicole says, my first real love, the lady who was posted down south by the RAF, named her son Alistair, which is my proper name. We would never have guessed, Ali. I thought it was Ringo. I thought your first name was Ringo. Alistair, it says, which is my proper name. Don't worry, we had split 5 years before she gave birth. Yes, that's a long, what's it, not congestion period, digestion period? What's the, a long, yes. I hadn't known that she'd got pregnant or anything. Maybe it was, there was a bit, let's not go down that road. Anyway, Vicky Allen says that I think that sometimes about first loves, about your first loves and where they are now and what they're doing. Yes, it's an interesting thing. But I wonder what would happen if you met them again, whether there would still be that magic, or would you be going, oh my God, really? Is that you? Now you've grown up? Say you were, 15, like you said before, and now you meet them at 50 and you think, what? You're a wrinkled old prune. When I last saw you, you were rather dishy. But now, look, you've put on weight, you've lost your hair. You are an accountant. You drive a Porsche. Wait a minute, hang on. Suddenly you're looking interesting again. You've got a big house and a swimming pool. Yeah, and you're made of tons of... Yeah, actually, you're very attractive. Here's a question for you. Does money make the partner attractive? If they've got an ideal lifestyle, does that change your opinion of somebody? Throwing that out there for you to have a little look at. That would be interesting. Michael Angel says, I think that sometimes about my first... Oh, sorry, that's Vicky. He says, my girlfriend said, isn't it about time we got married? I said, who would marry us? That's a... Well, maybe you could marry one another. That may be a thought that hadn't crossed your mind. Julia says, Michael Angel, my hubby could marry you both. Yes, that's it, because Julia's hubby has become a celibate. He's not celibate, but he's become a celebrant because they've had a baby called Joseph, so we know that bit's not true. But he did a course to be a celebrant, which is somebody who is like a priest, but without the religious bit. And you can also, if you like, if you die as the shock from getting married, he can actually bury you as well. Well, not physically bury you. You get a gravedigger to do that, but he can do the funeral service because he's a celebrant. You can go on a course, apparently. You don't need any qualifications, and it's relatively cheap. But there we are. Michael Angel says, I will think about it. It says Michael Angel, thinking, obviously he's thought about this a long time and putting it slightly off. One of the reasons I got married, we weren't going to get married when I got married, but the tax benefits were actually in our favour, so we did get married. And Ali Nicole says, a bit worried too. Richard mentions my thunder flies. I never mentioned your thunder flies. Thunder thighs and tight shorts, then starts twisting around the lid on the bottle next to the links. It's all right, Ali. The thought of men running around so I'm not a football fan or rugby fan I never quite understand why heterosexual men get so excited looking at other men stripped pretty skimpily running around with their legs on display. I never quite understand that, so I've never been one for those sort of sports. And as for cycling, all that lycra, that makes my skin creep. Vicky says the uniform does it all. Yes, I need to get a Bald Explorer uniform. I wonder if that would... I could go back to wearing my pith helmet, I suppose. Linda Keynes, she agrees that the uniform does it all. So what is it? So the uniform, I mean, the uniform? What is it about the uniform? Because now, let's talk to anybody who's married somebody in the forces. Is it then that the uniform becomes the wife's job to clean and tidy and iron and get pristine? I would think the last thing you would want, you'd see a man in a uniform and think, uh-oh, that's a lot of work coming my way that I didn't intend. Yes, I've got to have these polished and that pressed and those cufflinks in the right place and this tie square and that collar starched. I would have thought that women would be going, not for me, mate. Andrew Norris says gestation. Thank you very much. That was the pregnancy word we were looking for. Rami Boo says, guess I'm just the opposite. Always love very nice, clean-cut men. And you're right, Richard. They don't have to be dull. That's right. They're not all stamp collectors. Victoria was saying, thinking about my daughter's father who two-timed me, what is wrong with me? Yes, I'm sure your daughters, however, are absolutely marvellous. And, the apple of your eye, and you wouldn't want to turn back the clock because who knows, you might have been with somebody else and the daughters may have been terrible. And Fiona says she's still friends with her first love. Oh, that's nice. It's nice if you can still be friends, isn't it? If you marry for money, you earn every cent, says Mandy of Merrimack. Sounds like you're talking from experience there. Is there something that we should know about? And if there isn't that we should know about, will you just tell us anyway? That would be interesting. Andrew Norris says meeting up with old flames destroys the illusion, which is probably not a bad thing. Gives you a reality check. Although, sometimes you do want to just have a little bit of fantasy in your life, even if it doesn't happen. This is why sometimes the fantasy should never be broken, because if you've got that fantasy of something, when it becomes a reality, then what have you got to look forward to? All the time you've got a fantasy, you've got hope. There's the hope that something will come, a spark will happen. But when it's a reality, perhaps the reality is a lot worse. But it could be that reality is a lot better. So I'm just talking absolute rubbish. Hang on a minute. That's nice, isn't it? It's very nice. Oh, that's been poisoned, spiked. Somebody spiked my drink. Les Jervis says, just been doing the washing up. Have I missed something? Ah, look at that. You see, he's taken heed of the Vobes and he's quickly gone to the washing up bowl and his wife is going, hello, what do you want? It's like when you give them flowers, isn't it? Unexpectedly. It's like, oh yeah, this is a cynical ploy. Audrey says, Mrs. Merton asked Debbie McGee, yes, what first attracted you to the millionaire Paul Daniels? That was a very, very comic moment on her show. Yes, I do remember that. Vicky Allen says, no money doesn't make men attractive. I love men who make me laugh and have manners. Yes. What about, so here we go. From a male, a nervous, unassured male sitting here in front of you. You see, and I'm sure it works the other way around with women. You see all the pictures of these wonderful, Lantin jaw model type men with beards or unshaven. It's supposed to be sexy, they've unshaven, and you think, golly, if you're going to kiss a face like that, it's going to be prickly. It's going to be a bit, and they're just in a t-shirt and all that. But, we're told that is what women are after. And then you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, well, I obviously got out the wrong egg. I've got no chance. So I'm just interested, surely looks are an important feature, are they not? Andrew Norris says, absolutely, Victoria. Sense of humour and manners are top on my list. Mike Dixon says, we have a humanist wedding. Well, we had a humanist wedding. At the Queen's Head Hotel the Queen's Hotel, not the Queen's Head. It'd be terrible if you had the Queen's Head on a platter at your wedding. That would be rather worrying. Then 2 years later, we had the humanist naming ceremony for our daughter. What the hell is this humanist naming ceremony? Both celebrations were very special, he says with a little love heart. I'm sure they were. but aren't you humans anyway? Do you need something to sort of say, we humans, we get together, a special species. You're not marrying a chimpanzee or a dog or a koala bear. You're actually two humans getting married, and we will name you as humans. You can be Hugh, and you can be Man, and together you can be Hugh-Man. Lovely Julia says, I was 14 when I met my first love. We were at school together. We were together for about 18 months when I realised that he wasn't a faithful boy. Dated him a bit of a year or so later, but felt I would never be his number one. Yes, it's a very sad story, but as I say, I think sometimes you've got to go through these things before suddenly, the Mr. Right or the Mrs. Right comes along. If you just stick with that one relationship, then it can be a bit dodgy. And also, I think people get into a funny old situation with their relationships. They can be going nowhere, and they're just plodding along in their relationships for a long, long time. And it's like with when I was with Dawn, there came a point I did a pantomime on the back of my TV series Snug and Cozy, and there was a girl on the pantomime who was playing Prince Charming, and she was a lovely girl, and I had these very strong feelings for her. I was away from home, nothing happened, I was not disloyal, but that's not to say that nothing would have happened if she had been, oh Richard, I like you, but then I was dressed up as a pink-headed alien, and I was hardly the most attractive fellow in the can, in the pantomime. I was in this silly outfit. But I felt that these strong emotions were going through me, and this shook me because I thought the relationship was fine and everything was going along, and we were going to be the same shriveled walnuts on the same branch when we were old. And it made me think actually about the relationship. And then at some time later, about a month or so later, I did have to turn round to Dawn, and this was the hardest thing I've ever done in a thing, and say, do you know what? I don't think I love you anymore. And that is really, really difficult. But it was the right thing to do. The children were about 8, 9, 10, that sort of age, perhaps 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. And this, it shook Dawn, obviously, that she wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't expecting it. And I realised that our relationship really had been fantastic. We'd had this lovely marriage. We'd had these amazing children that we'd put everything into the children. But the spark had gone out, and we could have just carried on in some form of relationship, but we weren't really happy. And so we did in the end go our separate ways, and we're actually now both very happy for it, funnily enough. And the children are still, they've still got their parents, and the split up was as amicable as we could make it. And we made sure, again, even in the split up, we did everything really for the children. And of course, I know not everybody can be amicable when they're breaking up, but it was a very hard thing to do. But it had to be done. And I think there are people who are in relationships who really perhaps, could look at themselves and think, well, the spark has gone. Is it ever going to come back? Is anything going to or are we just in a rut and we don't do anything? And I think there are relationships that people get themselves into. Mine was a bit like that. Of course, I'm not in a relationship at the moment, but that's okay. I had a long-term relationship with somebody who lived 325 miles away from me for a long time, for about 8 years, and that was an interesting experience, travelling up every weekend, not every other weekend, a long distance all the way up to Shrewsbury. Mickey Stevens says, I see hundreds of women every day, but they all go quickly. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Mickey. Vicky says, I may have missed out a few people. Women are like buses. You don't see one for ages, then 10 come at once. Is that true? Is that really true? As long as they don't look like the back end of a bus, you're all right. Now, that is a horrible thing for me to say, but that's just a joke, okay? It's just a joke. We are allowed to joke. Jason Cutler, none of my viewers, by the way, resemble the back end of a bus. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not going to dwell because I've dug a deep enough hole there. A Lamborghini makes you more attractive, apparently, says Jason Cutler. Have you got a Lamborghini? Or a lamb. What's that other thing? A lambretta. A lambretta, is that a little a lambretta? Is that like a Vespa? Little lambretta. I can't remember. Sorry to hear that, Daniel. I can't remember what Daniel's on about. Andrew Norris says, was it in the Grand in Brighton, Jeff? I missed something there. The Grand in Brighton. Audrey says that's so sad, Richard. It is sad, but you know, things do happen. And Richard, you basically had grown apart. Yes, I think people. That's exactly it. I think people do grow apart in their lives. I think it takes a lot of effort to keep the relationship going, and you can try. I think, you know, you ought to try. Obviously, you ought to try, but sometimes it's not reciprocal, or other times there are other worries on your mind, or other times you're just very comfortable, or the other person is very comfortable, but you don't feel the spark is there. And you do wonder that if you were to run away or die or something, would the other person really miss you? Perhaps they would if you were making them their meals or cleaning their clothes, or, you know, doing all the things. I mean, it depends on the relationship, of course. Jeff says, I think you're right, Andrew. What has Andrew said? Andrew, was it the Grand in Brighton? Just trying to look to see what he was right about. Linda Kane says, no, Jeff, that was the Grand. Hazel B says, good evening, Mr. Vobes and all. Finally managed to catch you live. We are doing the love show, ladies and gentlemen, but we've only got 8 minutes left, Hazel B. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for coming along. We're talking about our first loves, and also, sadly, we've got on to a little bit of how you split up, or when a relationship comes to an end. D for Bricks, Land Rover, Richard. Oh, a Land Rover. Does a Land Rover make you more attractive? We were also asking whether money makes you an attractive person, and why women go for the bad men. Mandy of Merrick says, I prefer solid, loving, kind, funny men. And Barbara Charles says, a Ferrari, Vobes, not a Lambretta. Right, okay. I can't, to be honest, I'm not very good with cars. So, good evening to Andrew Murphy, by the way, who's just popped in. I'm not very good with cars. I know what a Porsche is. I know what a Ferrari is. I know there's models of them. They're just the names, aren't they? And I wouldn't know whether one's impressive and one's not impressive. What I find sad, tell you what I find sad, is those people who are trying to impress, and you can see they're desperately trying to impress by having something like a flash car. But it's not quite a flash car. You know, it's not a Porsche, it's not a Ferrari, but it's, you know, it's something not quite that. Looks like it, or even worse, is those people who have personalised number plates. I saw one the other day, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but the last part of it was obviously supposed to say boy, and I don't know quite what the letters were now, but it didn't quite say boy. They used 8 as the letter B. And, you know, I just thought, yeah, it's not quite there, is it? It's not quite there. You really tried, and you want people to see it something like, you know, hi boy, or something like that, you know, whatever it was. But you still have to use a leap to get the 8 to do the BOYY. Or whatever, you know, whatever the thing was. And I just think that's very sad, because either do it and do it well, or don't bother. If you can't have the Ferrari or the Porsche, that lower one below, I wouldn't bother with it, because what you're shouting, you know, it's these people with the smart cars, that, you know, the smart cars that were the ones with the. They came out with these smart cars, you know, you had the little diddy ones, and then you had the ones that looked like sports cars, and you sort of think, it's not really a sports car, is it? Why bother? If you can't buy a proper sports car, don't bother, because it actually makes you look worse, because, you know, you couldn't really afford one, could you? Lovely Julia says, one of my favourite pop singers is Dua Lipa, sings, it's just our bodies. Are we both losing our mind? It's the only reason you're holding me tonight, 'cause we're scared to be lonely. Do we need somebody just to feel like we're all right. The only reason you're holding me tonight because we're scared to be lonely. Yeah, well, that's true. Is some people may well have a partner because they're just scared to be on their own. I think that's very true. Mike Dixon says we had a humanist wedding. It was very special, and we're still together 24 years later. I don't really know what that means, but I'm sure it's lovely. Michael Angel says, you need someone to float your boat, Richard, since you live in Worthing. Yes, that's very true. I keep myself busy, so it doesn't overly concern me. I've been in relationships and what have you. Until the right person comes along, I don't have time. Don't pin me down, Fiona Cooper says a car is a tin on wheels, can be a Fiesta or a Porsche. It doesn't Porsche. A Porsche on wheels would be funny. Actually, it doesn't bother me. No, but it does. You see, that's very true, and I'm the same. Cars do not impress me. People look at the cars and they go, "Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that!" And I go, "Well, it's a thing. It's vehicle transport to get you from place to place." But some people are really hung up on it. I understand that. I'm going out tomorrow to buy myself some chocolates. They'll be half price. Good idea. You see, that's it. The marketing is all a hyped up thing. Deep Breek says, you've got a nice car, Richard. I have. I've got the Bald Explorer written on the back. Not many people, or any people, have that. So I'm very pleased. Hazel B says, my man passed away in 2007 after 12 years together. That's very sad, Hazel. I'm so sorry about that. That's... What is that? That's over 10, 11, 12, 13 years or something. Have you found somebody else? That's the question that we must ask. Have you moved on from it? I mean, it's very sad, of course, and I'm not by any... But, one can hold on, I suppose, to the love of your life, but you still have to... You have to live, you've got to live. Rami Boo says, Victoria... my favourite car is an old green Morris Minor. Actually, do you know what? I had a Morris Traveller. A Morris Traveller was my very first car. And I loved it. And if I could have any car again, I would love to have a Morris Traveller. I used to know a girl who I was sort of had the hots for when I was about 15. Her mum had a Morris Minor. And that was one of the things that was swaying me to this girl, funnily enough. Did I miss anything, Richard Vobes, says Dean Cooper? No, nothing, mate. Nothing, mate. We just had just a boring show tonight, mate. No, you've missed nothing. We were talking about delivery vans, actually. The length of your van, the delivery van, says something about you. That's what we were saying. Andrew Morris says, hi, Kim. Finally here. Did I miss Kim coming in? Kim Murden. Sorry, Hazel, says Vicky. Jason Cutler says, no, Lando, I did have an MG. I was driving when we first met. Oh, an MG. Yeah, I've seen the MG. MGs are nice, though. They used to have a good name, didn't they? Then they sort of used to have a bad name because they apparently used to conk out. But I always wanted, was it a Triumph Herald? I always thought a Triumph Herald was a nice car. Vicky says, going to have a large glass of wine now and drown my sorrows. Oh, Vicky, don't be upset. Please don't be upset. Glenn Johnson says, the smart Brabus is fun to drive, not pretending to be a Ferrari, just fun to drive. Oh, right, fair enough. Fair enough. Cars don't impress me, says Lisa. Hazel B says, Porsche on wheels, LOL. That would be funny. Cars don't impress me either. Maybe it's just men that think that women are impressed by cars and they drive around in these things. But of course, the weird thing about these flash cars is you've got to have a lot of money to buy them. By the time you've actually earned that money, you've had to be in a high-pressure job, mostly, which has meant you've been sitting down pretty much most of the time. So you've put on weight, you've eaten all the wrong kind of foods, you've got sort of short and fat and probably balding, but you've now managed to buy the car that you should have had when you were in your 20s, when you had all the energy and the vroom to carry off the rest of it that would be shown in a Hollywood film. But so now that you're a middle-aged man in a car, and it just looks a bit even more sad because you've spent all the money you can to have this dream car, thinking that you can attract that lovely member of the opposite or the same sex that you fancy, when actually it probably really doesn't do the job at all. Andrew Norris says, I got my first car last August just so I could take my dog to the village instead of walking the dog. Maybe you should get the dog to dress up in a chauffeur's outfit and have the dog drive you to the village. That would be good. The Shana Twong sang, that don't impress me much. Oh, shy. I can't even pronounce it. Shana Twong. Twain. Oh, yes, I know who you mean. I can't pronounce it. Mark Donny McLeod says, Humanist services are non-religious, Richard. Wife and I had a registry do and a hand fasting in accordance with our faith. Best day of my life. That sounds lovely. Glenn Johnson says, one of my dogs hates me. That's no way to talk about your women. Victoria Allen says, love that song. We're coming very fast to the end of the show now, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it's been good. And Mr. Great Plum has come back for the end. He says, now on Reigate Heath, waiting for Josh to come back from a wide game. A wide game? I have no idea what a wide game is. He lives in a different world, does the lovely Matthew Holdsworth. Lewis Herbalist, the lovely Kim, says, I wanted a Morris Traveller, but I did have a lovely Triumph Herald as my first car, which was great. There we go, you see. Two great cars there. Dean Cooper says, I'm a delivery guy. My marriage is as strong as ever. Did you deliver your own children? That's what I want to know. Glenn Johnson says, we had a Herald convertible. We've got into cars now by accident. That's, man's probably first love, or a lot of men. Even better. Dave Ford says, Matthew, a wide game at night. What is a wide game? I need to know that before I go. Glenn Johnson says, cool cars are good, regardless of girls' opinion. Great. Hazel B says, there was someone a couple of years ago, but to be honest, it wasn't in me. No one could compare to my soulmate. I am happy as I am now, single. Well, that's the best way, isn't it? I guess if you're happy being single, you don't have all the issues that you might have. The question that we could do on another night is, what's the advantages of being single? And being single presumably means that you can't have, what can I call it, relations with members of the, not necessarily the opposite sex, but with, sort of the cheeky naughty side of marriage that probably doesn't last very long anyway, when you're single. I don't quite know how all that works, because I've never been very good at all of that, despite wearing the lovely jacket, of course, that, when women will swoon at. I've never really been your Valentino. Rudolph is it Rudolph Valentino? No, he was a dancer, wasn't it? Who's anyway, it doesn't really matter. Vicky Adams says, open the cakes. Oh yes, here we go. Well, we've got to end the show, so we better open these cakes and find out what they're like. I was going to save these in case, the woman of my dreams should walk through my door. But unfortunately, the woman of my dreams hasn't walked through my door. But there's always later. You never quite know with the woman of your dreams. You've got to keep the hope. I can't get into these. I can't get into them, ladies and gentlemen. Minis are brilliant. You don't have sex when you're single. Don't you? What do you mean you don't have sex when you're single? Well, I suppose you don't have sex if you're completely on your own. Is that what you mean? You don't have... I love... something minis. I don't know what that means. Now they're talking a different language. They're talking. I've had 10 minis, says Glenn Johnson. I had a mini moke once, turned it into a space vehicle, and it had wings. Adapted, I welded a snug and cosy space rocket out of a mini moke. We got it from a scrapyard. It was still just about doable, and it appeared in the Dimwits, actually. One of my proposals. Right, this is Liberty of Richards. That's what it says. Look at that. Liberty of Richards. How extraordinary. And this is what they look like. The lovely Jeff Kellison bought these, I believe, some years ago now. There they are. Look at that. And at random. No idea what's in them. Dave Ford says a wide game is a kind of game played in a large area, such as a field, heathland, woodland. It's commonly played by scouts, girl guides, and other group. But what kind of game is it? Is it a ball game? Is it a tag game? Is it a board game? Is it Twister? What kind of game? I mean, wide game doesn't really give much, doesn't give the game away, does it? You should have kept them all, says Glenn Johnson. Well, to be honest with you, there's nobody else here. They're nice though. They're sort of jelly things. Cakes, yum. Linda Kame says, "Yep, got one again now." Got one what again? Oh, mini. Mickey Stevens says, classic. Oh yeah. Mark Donny McLeod says, "I used to have multicoloured Skoda, and folk laughed at me. Not when it snowed though. I was the only one who could get about. A car to me is a form of transport, not an extension." Yes, quite right. Only 50 mokes on the road. Well, my moke, unfortunately, was bought by a bloke. We turned it into this rocket car. And then we turned it into a number of different things. Used it on some corporate jobs. We put bangers on it. You know, like the old scarecrow bangers that use blanks, shotgun blanks. We put those on it so we could blow the doors off. The doors would ping off. We had a steering lock on it, and the engine that would just put it into second gear, and it would basically go in a locked circle on its own so that we could fall off the vehicle. We did this arena show, and we would fall off the vehicle, and the car would go round and round and round, and we would argue, and eventually we'd run back onto the car and get it and steer it round. It was great fun. These are quite pleasant. Julia says she wishes she had a Mini. I don't drive, I don't want to. I've got a scooter though. Oh, that's the thing. Oh gosh. Talking of all of that, it just reminded me. We've had a couple of pictures sent in to do the Can You Guess the Photo? But we won't do it now because today's been a show about Valentine's Day. I'll save those pictures that have been sent in. A couple of people have sent them in. Guess the photo. We'll do them on the Monday show. And before we go, on Tuesday the 18th, if anybody's interested in video editing, I'm going to do a live stream on video editing. And it will go on the Bald Explorer YouTube channel. So it won't go on this channel, it'll go on the Bald Explorer YouTube channel, and it will talk about video editing if anybody's interested, for beginners. But it will be, I'll be using computer software as opposed to apps on a phone, but I'm talking about the principle of editing more than the actual, you move this bit to here and that bit to there. I'm talking about the principle of it. And I don't know if Dave's still there. I was going to email Dave. I want to see if I can nick a bit of footage from people who on the Bald Explorer group, so that I could constructively criticise and help some of their edits to improve them. So if Dave's still out there, Dave Ford, I did look at one of yours the other day, and I thought, there's some things in there that I could just throw at you that might help your editing. Oh, Dave Ford is there. He says, sorry, sadly between two or more teams which have achieved specific objectives in order to win the game, this might simply preventing the other teams from finishing. Oh, sorry, it's not a ball game as such, this wide game. It's a peculiar thing. Got a racing green one, says Linda Kane. Right, anyway, they're all talking about cars. Oh, we've got time for the photos, haven't we? We'll do the photos on Monday. That'll give me some content for Monday. That would be great. A clown suit to match. Yes, well, we used to do them in our space outfits running around. Why not join the Monday show? We'll try to join the Monday show, says Hazelby. Yeah, do join the Monday show. It's great fun. Wednesdays, the lovely Julia is in, but sometimes she comes in on a Monday, so who knows? She may be here on the Monday. Andrew Norris says night. Well, that's it. I hope you have a wonderful time. Andy Frierson's probably going to get back to his wife now. She's still in the restaurant waiting, probably slowly eating the ice cream and strawberries. and I hope that everybody else has a fantastic and wonderful Valentine's night, and you get your just desserts at the end of it. Thanks so much for watching. It's been absolutely lovely to have you. I can now turn off... Which side is it? This side. I can now turn off this rather unusual thing up here. Isn't that magic? Did you see that? Did you like that? Did you like that? And so, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful. And good luck with all your love life in the future. I'll be back on Monday. There'll be another Bald Explorer tomorrow. And the week goes on. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much. Take care, one and all. How do I get out of this? Yeah, here we go. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.